In this lesson, we're going to go ahead and go over Photoshop Classroom in a Book Chapter 3, which is all about working with selections. Of course, being able to cut things out, select them, remove them from their background is one of the key and critical skills in Photoshop, and we're going to play with that throughout this lesson. Let's go ahead and start with Canvas. Go to Assignments, Photoshop Classroom in a Book Chapter 3, and download the assets. I've already downloaded them to my desktop. I'm going to go ahead, right-click, Extract All, and unzip them. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we have in this folder. In this folder we have one that says Start and we have one that says End. You can always open up the End one to find out what it is you're supposed to be looking at. Let's go ahead and double click Start. I can then go File, Open. I'm going to navigate over to my End and I can see what we're trying to create. If I go to Window, Arrange, to Up Vertical, it'll actually let me look at both of those tabs side by side. So it's kind of a nice way to be able to move things from one place to another. In this case, we're going to go ahead and push Close on that End one. Alright, so we've got quite a few different ways of creating selections from our different tools we have here in Photoshop. Things like geometric selections, where you can do with our marquees. We can do things like freehand selections with our lassos. We can do edge-based selections, which things like our quick selection tool. We can also do color-based selections, things like our magic wand. So we're going to start with the quick selection tool. Before we start, let's go ahead and do a file, save as, and let's call this 03 Working. Make sure it's in your Lesson 3 folder and press Save. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is grab the Quick Selection tool. The Quick Selection tool is about the fourth tool down. Make sure you click and hold. It is hiding sometimes underneath. It looks like a brush with a circle next to it. We're going to go ahead and we want to select the very first one, which means make a new selection. The second two after mean you can add to a selection or take away if you should happen to make a mistake as you're doing something. I usually have Auto Enhance turned on because it makes it a much cleaner selection. And we're going to go ahead, I'm going to take my zoom and zoom in a little bit. My zoom's on minus, so in out. I'm going to zoom plus. Because what we're going to do is cut out this sand dollar. It's very easy with a quick selection because it's all basically one color. I'm going to grab that quick selection tool and I'm going to basically just click on it and it's going to grab all of that sand dollar for us, which makes it pretty easy. I'm going to do a Control minus because we need to move that up here to this spot marked A. I'm going to grab my Move tool up here at the top and I'm going to grab my sand dollar, grab and hold, and drag it up over to this section where I want to cover it up, basically cover up that shadow that's on there. Now because we are not doing layers on this selection, once I let go, this will become part of this image. We will not be able to move it, so make sure it's where you want before you turn your dancing ants off. When you're ready, do Control D to turn those ants off. And as you can see, now I cannot go through and move just that individual item. Alright, what else can we do? We need to go ahead and cut out this plate of shells. So I'm going to do Control plus, scroll down, Control plus a few more times, and scroll over. You can use your navigator, you can use your hand. There's a few, you always hold the space bar down, you can slide it around that way. Alright, so what I'm going to do is a little bit complicated. So make sure you watch all the steps before you try doing it. We're actually going to play with the marquee. We're going to grab this elliptical marquee. And if I just try and draw a circle around it, there's no way I'm going to get it right the first time. Control Z to undo that. You can try and try and try and try, but there's no way you're going to get it right just the first time. So you need to be able to use the tools to nudge and move that along. So what I'm going to do is grab and draw my circle, but I'm not going to release my mouse button. I'm going to hold my space bar and I'm going to move that into place a little bit more. I'm going to let go of the space bar. I'm going to stretch my marquee a little bit more. Use my space bar, nudge it around, let go, until I've got a pretty good selection. It can take several tries to do that. I've had a lot of practice making this thing of shells. So make sure do not let go of the space bar or the mouse button. As soon as you let go of the mouse button, your selection is finished. Alright, so one of the next things we need to do is be able to move this. So in order to move it, we want to go ahead and hit Control over this section. We're still on the marquee. We didn't change the move tool, but notice how the icon changes to a little pair of scissors and an arrow. That'll allow us to move that without changing tools. So I'm going to hit Control, drag up, and I'm going to go ahead and put it over here over spot number B, or letter B. And once again, make sure you have it where you want it, because once you turn the ants off, you will not be able to adjust it. I'm pretty happy with it, so I'm going to do Control D and hit Control S to save what I've got so far. Alright, a few other things that we can do. We're going to go ahead and select this piece of coral next. Now the piece of coral is a little bit complicated because it's got all of these little bits and pieces. We really can't quick select it. We really can't use the dry circle around it, so we're going to do something else. We're going to go ahead, grab our rectangle marquee, and draw a rectangle around that piece of coral because we want to actually select everything but. So sometimes it's a matter of, I'm going to do Control plus and zoom in a little bit. It's a matter of taking away from a selection. So go ahead, we've made our selection around our coral. We're going to go up here and grab our magic wand, which is under the quick selection. And we want to make sure that our tolerance is set to 32. The lower the number, the more exact the colors have to be for it to select. The higher the number, the less exact. So if you're having a hard time with creating a marquee or a magic wand, sometimes it's a matter of playing with that tolerance in order to get a better answer. And we want to go ahead and grab this white and black, this third one over. And what we're going to go ahead and do is we want the subtract from, which is this one, subtract from selection. And we get the minus sign. See, it's got a little minus there. And we want to actually take away from the selection. So when I click, we now took away all that white and moved those dancing ants along the contours of our image itself, which made it a lot easier than having to go through and try and select those individually. Alright, I'm going to Control minus and grab my move tool and move it up to over here to letter C. Alright, so there's a few other things we can do. Let's go ahead and Control D, deselect. The next thing we're going to do is cut out this muscle. So we're going to actually use some of our lassos. I'm going to use some Control plus, scroll down and over, or I can use my space bar and slide it that way, either way. So we're going to use a couple of different lassos in this process. The lasso tool itself allows you to freeform that line. So it's going to go wherever you make it go. Sometimes you want to freeform part of it, but then automate part of it. So we're actually going to start and we're going to freeform, or click and hold, and freeform around this part of the muscle. And now we're to the point where we can actually do bigger chunks at a time. Without releasing my mouse button, I'm going to hold Alt or Option on the Mac. I'm going to let go of my mouse button, still holding Alt, and click and hold, and notice I can do much bigger chunks at a time using that one. I can click hold, I can let go of Alt, and it switches back to the other lasso. I'm going to hit Alt again and do some more bigger chunks. So it kind of depends on what you decide. I'm going to let go of my Alt, freeform until I get up to the other end, and once I've gone through, I'll get the dancing ants on the entire muscle itself. Alright, so I need to go ahead and move that one as well. So it takes a while to get proficient at creating those selections. I'm going to grab my move tool, grab my muscle, but you're going to notice that they want the muscle to go up and down, and it's sideways right now. I can go ahead and go to Edit, Transform, and Rotate. And if I go outside now, I get my double pointed arrow, and I can turn that item. Now notice up here it changed, so if I turn it a little more, it tells how much I have rotated that item. So if you want it to be completely 90 degrees, you can always type the word, the letters 90 in there. You'll notice mine's a little bit higher than the shadow, so I'm going to use my arrow keys, or I'm going to hit yes to commit the selection to the transformation, and now I'm going to use those arrow keys to kind of nudge it down back over that shadow a little bit more. Alright, so I'm going to hit Control D to deselect, do Control minus. Our collage is coming together pretty nicely now. The next thing we're going to do is cut out this Nautilus shell. So I'm going to do Control plus a few times, hit my space bar, drag it up. So the next thing I want to try is my magnetic lasso. So I go to my lasso tools, and the third one down is my magnetic lasso. Magnetic lasso is very nice in that it will automatically detect all these edges. So I will go ahead and click, and I don't have to hold the mouse button, I just need to drag it carefully in along the edges. And it's basically looking for the difference in color is what it's selecting. So go all the way around. Until I get to the other side. I'm going to click when I've got it, and I've got my selection. Now if you accidentally grabbed too much, you can always subtract or add to a selection. So I'm going to Control minus. Go ahead, grab my move tool, and let's move that Nautilus shell up. Okay, so Control D and turn off my dancing ants. So next thing we want to add is 4 screws to the corners, but we only have 1 screw. So we're actually going to, once we select this, we're going to copy it. So I'm going to Control plus, zoom in on what I want to select, which is this screw, but I just want the screw part itself. So one of the easiest ways to do this is to go grab your Elliptical Marquee, and you can try and draw just a circle around it and do our adjust as we learned earlier. There's a couple other things we can do as well. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. I'm going to grab the shift at the same time, and that will make it go proportional so I get a perfect circle. If I do Alt Shift at the same time, it'll go from the inside out. So let's do it again. Alt Shift from the middle will let me draw that circle from the inside out. I'm not going to let go of, oh, see, I let go of my button too fast. So Control Z to undo. Alt Shift. I'm going to let go of my mouse button. Then I'm going to let go of Control and Shift. Now, I don't love my selection. I got a little bit too high. I'm going to do it one more time. So Alt Shift. And before I let go of my mouse button, I can use my arrows. I still have Shift and Alt hold down. And I can kind of nudge that over a little bit. Alright, now I can go ahead and take my move tool, and we would move it up here to the corner. But if you notice, the scale is way, way, way too big, and we don't want it to be that large. So let's go to Edit, Transform, and Scale. And that will allow us to change. Right now you'll see it's 100%. Let's go ahead and take it to 60%. But we need to do 60% for the height and 60% for the width. And I can take my move tool, yes, apply it, and bring it down a little bit. Still a little bit big, so I can do my Edit, Transform, Scale, And instead, let's take it down to another 60%. It's a little bit small now. Let's go ahead and go 70. Okay, I like that size. That size works. All right, it's giving me a chime because it's saying, what do you want to do? I want to go ahead and commit that transformation, so I hit the check mark. So now I'm going to do Control minus, and I need to actually copy this element to the other corners. But I've got to make sure that I do not turn my selection off before I do that. I'm going to hit Alt with my Move tool, click on my screw. Let's scroll in a little bit better so you can see. Alt and grab. Don't grab the center thing. It's letting me grab that, which is not what I want. Alright. Okay, so I'm going to commit the change. Hit Alt and grab, and it'll let me make a copy of that screw. So I'm going to do, it's going to say, do you want it? So I'm going to scroll out a little bit. I want to do Alt again, grab the screw, and make another copy. Do not grab this center point. Grab it just outside. And so we have 4 screws all the way around. Let's do Control minus, and you can see that you've created. Control D will deselect that. So now you see that we've got our collage that we've made. The next thing we need to do is to crop this image down. So we're going to go ahead and grab our crop tool. As long as ratio does not have any numbers in it, it will allow us to crop it any way we want. So I'll scroll down. I'm going to grab this bottom, bring it up, bring this one down a little bit, bring my left and right in just a tiny bit. Alright, I'm going to bring my right in just a little bit, and when I've got it where I want, go ahead, make sure it's delete the cropped pixels, and check. And you've now used a lot of different types of ways to create selections in order to cut things out. You're going to go ahead, make sure you do a file save, and you're going to turn in the PSD document. Do not need to package. That's all for this one.